NVIDIA is expected to report more than $85 billion in data center revenue tonight. But powering all that compute is putting unprecedented pressure on the grid. Southern Company CEO Chris Womack is joining us now to discuss. And a utility that represents some 9 million customers, one of the biggest utility by customer basis. So Mr. Womack, introduce us to the responsibility you have right now, the scale of your utility, and then we'll get to the AI story.
No, I tell you, it's a wonderful time, wonderful opportunity where we find ourselves, and we are preparing for this growth. We're meeting this growth in a very responsible manner, making sure that as we work with data centers to support their growth, we're making sure that they bear the cost, and they do this in a very transparent kind of way. And so this is an incredible opportunity for the company, but I think it's very important that we do this in a right way that protects existing customers, but also make sure that the incredible benefits that come from these projects are provided to communities. I mean, there's a lot of activity, a lot of noise. I think sometimes a lot of misinformation about what's going on. I mean, we try to talk about what we're doing here in our territory and how we are doing contracts, how we're structuring contracts to make sure that existing customers are protected and that benefits provide, stability is provided across our business for all of our customers.
Let's go with a case study to explain the operational challenge, and that is OpenAI in Savannah, recently announced. How does something like that come about from the utilities perspective, and how do you respond to a big data center plan that goes in?
There's a lot of engagement that we have across our business, across our company, with a lot of hyperscalers, with a lot of data centers in terms of what their needs are, what parts of the country they want to locate. Then we will work very closely with the local communities in terms of what potential locations are available. And then we begin to plan and do scenarios about how they integrate with our system, with our grid. And then we just continue down through that process, and we're excited about the agreement reached with OpenAI, coming to Georgia, coming to Effingham County, right outside of Savannah. And with that announcement in terms of 25-year long-term agreement and other provisions in terms of collateral requirements, minimum bills, cancellation fees, all the things that we think are important, but also how they talked about what a good community partner they would be, and the investments they will make there. So we think this is the way to do this, and do this in a very responsible way.
We will talk about the impact on communities. In the first instance, we're talking about large load contracts, what your industry calls large load contracts. How has the outlook for that type of deal changed this year going into next year in terms of the number and size that you're doing?
No, we continue to see a real significant pipeline. I mean, so we still see the demand out into the future. We have not seen any decline or any hesitation in the number of projects. And so, like I said, as we look at our pipeline, we continue to see a significant pipeline of interest and activity across our territory.
Mr. Womack, do you see a public backlash or souring sentiment in your 9 million customers towards the idea of a data center in their backyard?
Yeah, I mean, as you look across the country and you look at the conversations, you look at the political environment. I mean, clearly there's a lot of noise. There's a lot of questions about data centers in terms of the impact on electric rates and what happens on water usage and noise, and a lot of other factors. And then kind of what kind of community citizen they will be. I mean, we spend a lot of time in terms of trying to explain the implications and the value that these projects brings, not only in terms of serving those customers, but also the benefits they bring in terms of putting downward pressure on existing customers' rates. And so we try to make sure that we're very transparent in terms of how we are doing, how we're managing these projects in our company and across our business.
What's the real terms outcome been for rates? You know, the concern of everyday Americans is their electricity rates go higher. Right? There are economists, even other utilities, that argue if you get the hyperscalers to cover the cost of modernizing the grid, buying at the wholesale rate, it actually is deflationary for energy prices. But what is the truth in that?
No, if you look across Georgia, you look across Alabama. I mean, we have rate stability through 2028 in terms of rates being frozen, and as we look at our models, we see with these projects that they will put downward pressure on existing customers' rates. So we try to communicate that reality in terms of what we see in our models and how we operate our system and the benefits that come with these projects. And so we're trying to make sure we get that message out and tell that story to existing customers and across our territory.
The data can be confusing. You know, we've tracked forecasts where the load forecast has actually come down because there are so many projects that are duplicates, some contracted for, some never see the light of day. What are you seeing of real terms data center contracts that are happening in the real world?
No, you mean you have to risk adjust pipelines. You have to risk adjust projects that may be in a queue and may be saying what they're interested in, because you have to assume that they're shopping around to other parts of the country. And so you have to do that risk adjustment work to understand what's real. And so at the end of the day, I mean, as we require collateral requirements and what we require from these projects up front, that's a way for us to risk adjust and determine what's real and what's just placeholders. And so we don't have placeholders, we don't deal with placeholders. We deal with what we think is real and projects that we see advancing and moving through the work that we do with them. But we've got to be very vigilant in terms of doing that kind of work.